Oh, yeah. There's one of my favorite toys. I think it's a Junior Troy built. That thing is so old, it has an aluminum block H35, 3.5 horse. I think it's 3.5 horse. Tecumseh. I think the only thing that I don't remember if I put a new carb on it. I think I reworked the old one, but I'm not sure. I painted it. The thing ran perfect yesterday. Wiped me out by the time I went over that little patch of ground there. You can see isn't all that big. Probably going to say in the neighborhood of a little over 15 feet, and at the wide end it might be 8. In the narrow end it's probably 3 or so. But I had to go over it 3 times. That's right, 3 times. I thought I went twice, but I actually went 3 times. Common Core. But anyway, that was after I serviced the little bugger, which was pretty much checked the air filter. Didn't even bother with a spark plug. That was new last year. And filled up the gearbox. Well, I overfilled the gearbox by intent. Why? Well, because it's old enough, the seals are gone bad. I put grease in there. Now, here's some of you that are going to be naysayers, but listen carefully. 90, 80, 90 that you would normally put in there, right? It doesn't flow all that well anyway. And what you need is a 00 gear grease. Well, the place I get that usually is Crapper Supply. Didn't have any available. Now, the hard part is when you get grease in there is getting it out so you can change it. So you have to take, next time I'll have to take the top off the box, scoop it out, clean it out, run some kerosene through it, because it's going to go down the tube to the gears back there as well. One of the problems is grease doesn't flow well until it's warm, so you have to make sure it gets to the gearbox in the back. So that's going to be the next thing before I fire that up and run it again. But anyway, I wanted to talk to you about my old Brindley plow. There it is. I'm going to show you some pictures, but I'm going to draw some pictures. Yeah, there it is. I painted it silver. That's why it's having such a reflective problem. But it's run off as well. Now, yeah, I took a video of some of the plowing that I was doing. It worked. Oh, that's Debbie. That's my picture, not yours. Now, there's a picture of the plow after it's been scoured. You notice there's no paint. The idea is to get these things down, because this is abrasive, what they call AR steel, abrasive resistant steel that's on these things. Now, also, you notice there's a little booger on the end of the plow share. No, this is an actual plow point from way back. Why do they have plow points? Well, the difference is the tip isn't just a cutting edge. The tip actually points downward, droops over, and that's so that it starts into the ground to get the plow in there. Why? Well, the plow doesn't have any weight, doesn't have a major frame or anything else, and it floats. Yeah, these plows float. What do they float on? Well, it's hard to see, but right there on the back end of it here, sticking way, let's see if I can get it, way out here, is a tail. What's the tail for? The actual tail is hard to see on that one. Let me see if I got a better picture. Ah, there it is. See how long that tail goes all the way out to here. Why does that go there? Because that's the actual control of the plow. Let's go over here again to the hitch. See the hitch? Not very well. There it is. And it curls up and over, and there's the plow point down here. This is on the ground. So this goes below ground level, 4 to 5 inches. You can go 6, but they plow beautiful around 5. Well, what's the idea? The hitch point's high up here. Yeah, it's about 10 inches above that point. But what the tail is for, see if I can find it again here, is that you notice the point is here. The tail is actually off the ground there, well, about 2 inches. And because it pivots on the hitch, it goes in a radius. And when it comes down to the bottom where you've adjusted it, which is also a facet of this lever here, this little spinner here. It's a spin handle. This is threaded. And here is a pivot point, and what this thing does is change the angle of the point. So as your point goes in and it follows that radius, that tail is the limiter. That lays right on the bottom of the furrow when everything is pulling level. Now, one of the curious things is because that hitch is high, if you hit something hard, Yeah, well, you don't have any weight transfer because this is just floating. But if you pull hard, it literally pulls that point up out of the ground. Another problem we have with these plows is because the tractor itself is flat, the plow is flat, but it pivots in the back. So when the nose of the tractor goes down a little, the hitch goes up because it's behind the rear axle. That picks the point of the plow up. When the nose of the tractor goes up, it pivots on the rear axle. The nose of the plow goes down, so it buries itself deeper. It's a floating plow. The old John Deere Bees had the exact same problem with their hitched plows. Up and down it would go. It's kind of a pain because there you can see the idea of the hitch. And the hitch point is here, but it flexes in here, right? But it's behind the rear axle. Oh, probably 6 or so inches. Uh-oh. I got to talk to my wife here for a brief second. Because I sent her a password reset for there. All right, so when I'm plowing in the garden, you have to be mindful of several things because of that. As you're plowing along and you start hitting rocks, it lifts the plow up out of the ground on that pivot. Doop. That's a problem. So the faster you pull, the harder it pulls. It starts picking the bottom up. You'd say it should drive it in further because it changed the angle. Well, it pivoted up over the hitch because of the force. The hitch is above, and your force is pushing it up and around. That's one of the problems with these plows. So there's quite often, if you're in rocky ground, you have to slow down. If you're in uneven ground, now you have to change your depth. Also, it's a floating plow. If the ground isn't consistent, like I had in the garden yesterday, it was fantastically consistent. Beautifully. I picked so many rocks out of the thing. And the neighbors had picked rocks out. It's on their property, and he just says, go ahead and use it. We don't do anything with it, but mow the grass. So I moved from one garden to another, and the funny thing is, the old garden I had might actually be opened back up after I took out about a ton of rock. Over 1,000. I know it's over 1,000. So anyway, but this garden they did, and it's up on a higher spot, there's fewer rocks. Well, when I plowed yesterday, there was almost none. I mean, they're there, smaller rocks that I don't care about. But as it plowed, it was consistent. It stayed 4.5, 5 inches deep all the way along, beautifully. That's the way I set it. When I started, it wouldn't go on the ground. Now, you'll get into the point where your first pass, your tractor's level. There is no furrow to drive in. So you may have to actually turn that little hand screw, and shorten it up on top so that the point goes down. Your first pass is going to be different than the rest of it. So then when you get to the end of that pass and you back up, if you forget to reset it, you are going to be in the ground for 2 reasons. One of them is your first pass, everything, your wheels and axle are level. Your second pass is tilted a little bit. So the plow is now in its proper orientation. If you take it, I can't show you on here, but the actual hitch, when the plow comes up to the hitch and is welded, is tilted slightly. So that the plow is level when the tractor, that's right, the tractor tilts in the ground. Now the plow hitch is welded on that hitch bracket at a slight angle so that when the tractor's tilted, the plow is level. So your first pass is the oddball one. The bottom of the plow is actually angled up a little bit, so it's hard to keep it in the ground. It's hard to get it in the ground, so sometimes you have to turn that screw, about 2 turns, and get the thing in the ground, and you get a nice furrow all the way up through there. You might actually have to turn it 3 or 4 turns to really get that thing in the ground the first pass. Why? Because your inner tire in the furrow is going to drop 5 inches. It's going to drop everything in the plow down in there as well. So you make your first pass as close and, pull the plow in and go slow. And make the first pass nice and slow. And when you get it made the way you want and set so it's working beautiful, don't think you're done. Make your pass, make it nice. When you get to the end, back up. Now, why do I say back up? Because you can go down this side, turn around, and come back the other. It'll throw the dirt outward. Or, as farmers used to do, is they might do the first one turning dirt out, then the next year you want to turn your dirt back in so that you don't lower the center of the field. So they'll start plowing down this side and come back up the other. Well, no, actually, it's the other way around. They'll start down this side and then go back up the other, and they'll turn the furrow in. So there's a high spot in the center, and if you don't catch it right, there's a spot in there that's not plowed at all. None. And that's one of the problems with a moldboard plow. So when you're in your garden, that's why I say you go forward, plow your furrow, now back up with your wheel in the furrow all the way back down. And then drop your plow behind where the other furrow began. You'll see marks in the grass where you dropped it or in your garden before. Well, hit it in about the same spot and then start forward slowly and let it get itself down in there. Yesterday, everything was perfect. All I had to do was start forward and the plow went right in the ground. That's that 2-inch lead. Get the heel of that bar, your level bar, your land side bar. It's not just the land side, it's land side to keep the plow from tipping over. After it cuts that furrow, it keeps the plow aiming straight forward. But also, this one has a land bottom to keep it from going deep. As soon as that heel hits, it stops. Well, now that you're going, you back down this furrow. If you say you've turned the screw to put the point in on pass 1, now back it off. If you did it 4 turns, back it off 3 and try it. You won't have to go far, usually in about 3 or 4 feet. You can see how the plow is doing. If you really start to feel it burying itself in there, you may actually have to back that off considerably more. So you make those adjustments, and pass number 2 is the important one for the rest of the garden. Number 1 starts up for setup for the garden. And if you're in the same, all the way across on the same garden with a similar, that you've been able to plow or till to a particular depth, then keep right on going across and make your adjustments as you need. And why do I say that? Well, some conditions change. And as they do, you can be going along and all of a sudden that plow on soft ground will push itself, the heel in deeper, and it'll go right in. Eventually, it'll bring itself down. But I have seen times when I was in another garden that for some reason, the plow kept going deeper and deeper until I was down in the ground 7 or 8 inches. Let me tell you, that's a hard pull. How deep you go in the ground is harder to pull than how wide your plow is. So you got an 10-inch wide plow. You could have a 12-inch on there and probably pull it at the same 5-inch depth. It'll be harder, but it won't be miserably harder. You go in the ground another inch, your power requirements go way up, as well as your traction increases drastically. You need that. So now you're into extra weights. See, the 10-inch plow is good to 5 inches. 12-inch plow is good to 6 inches, 7. So you got, that's right, an 8-inch bottom is good to what? 4, maybe 5. None of them plow well much less than 4 because you don't have enough soil in 3 inches to really make a difference. Okay, you need to get down in there. But still, you're limited by the size of the plow. 8 is 4 to 5. 10 is obviously 5 to 6. 12, 6 to 7. All right, you get there. 14, exactly, 7 to 8. 16-inch bottom. 8 to 9. I've seen them plow deeper, but they don't plow well much below 9. 9 is a nice cut. 18-inch bottom, of course, 9 to 10. That's why they used to have, years ago, 20-inch bottom plows. In some cases, 22. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Well, they used to have an adjustable plow, so if you wanted to plow deep, that nice wide plow with all those bottoms across there would turn it, and each of the bottoms in turn would come in and just overlap each other. So you'd have a 20-inch plow plowing 16 inches wide, or even 14 in real hard going. It'll still roll the thing over because you got a massive moldboard. And that was the design of the plow, was to be adjustable. Soft going, open that puppy up and let 22-inch cut rip. And you're all going to run about the same depth if they want 8 to 9 inches, which was common, and occasionally 10. That's what you could do, and as conditions changed, widen the plow or narrow it up. None of the other equipment cares whether you're plowing narrow or wide. And after a while, that just got to be something else to fix. So that disappeared and went the way of the Goonie Bark. So hopefully that helps some of you setting up these garden plows. Now, if you can, like you had, mine was painted. and I painted it. I don't know what it was, but I ran a wire wheel over it. Excuse me, and maybe even one of those flap sanding discs. Clean the thing off and then paint it over it. That makes a huge difference on your first 2 passes, because usually it takes up to a dozen passes to really clean one up nice. So if you have a lot of plowing to do, it'll clean itself up, but you'll be a lot happier if you do it and keep it clean in the first place and paint over it. Now some of you are going to say, I put grease on my plow. Well, whatever. If you can keep it from rusting. If you put grease on a plow, it has to be covered and left inside, because almost all lithium-based grease loves water, and it'll mix very well with it if you leave it out in the rain. So, hence, in my case, paint. And mine was some type of Rust-Oleum style that stuck to anything. In fact, I think what it was a silver paint for my aluminum machine shop work. I used to do cylinder heads, blocks, and such. It made aluminum look nice and shiny, which aluminum isn't nice and shiny unless you polish it. But it was still cool, and it was aluminum in the paint. So I was painting the mold board with an actual paint that had a metal in it. It could be a sacrificial metal if it needed to be, but it didn't. And you saw in there it worked very well. And my garden, oh my goodness. I don't think I have a good picture of that. Oh, look at that. Tioga State said hello and thank you. Take actions, we want permission. Where are we here? There we are. Did I take, oh no, I did a video of the thing plowing. I didn't do an actual. No, I didn't do an actual, but as you can see well, if I get it set right, you can see this. You can almost get an idea of the thing actually. It's a very smooth surface. There's very little ripple in it. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact I'd like to fill in the last dead furrow there, I could almost leave it. I hate to just disc it. I need to run that cultivator over it and it'll be good. The problem is the more stuff you run over it, the more you pack it back down. Well, in this case, it doesn't matter. I plan on planting potatoes in there, and to do that, I'm going to be digging a furrow anyway, and then covering it back up. And then we'll see what the deer do after that. But that's what I figured I'd cover today, just for the odd sake of it. Now, another one that probably I should show for some of you that are wondering, when I talk about weight transfer, what would that be like? On this, there is no. It's a floater plow. Most of your old trailer plows, they were semi-floating plows, because they were designed, you could change the angle of them to some extent, but they were designed to go down in the ground, and after that, rest on the wheels. Now, if you could change the angle somewhat on some plows with your tail wheel and such, but most of it was done on the front wheel adjustments, left and right. One would change one wheel for height and depth, and the other one would change for your transport up and down, your lift, whether it was hydraulic or the mechanical. The wheel comes up and down, pops up, so you can get to plow on the ground, and then down to lift the plow out of the ground. And the idea was to lift the front of the plow, so to walk right up out of there. What is weight transfer? Well, in a perfect world, what weight transfer would be my little plow here connected to the hitch here. And if this was carrying the plow, in other words, the plow is set for, I want it to plow at 5 inches, and I set it to plow at 6 or 7, and this was a rigid hitch, I'd be carrying the dirt and carrying the plow. So it'd be a little bit of weight transfer. The other one is, someplace down here on this bottom is going to be kind of a center of pull right in here. And if everything is rigid, that goes all the way up through the hitch near the center of the axle. So that it would be its pull point if it was like that. Now, why don't we have weight transfer on these? Because it's a floater. Why is it a floater? It's a floater because there is no actual, what they call, automatic draft control. There's nothing in the hydraulics, nothing in the hitch here that tells the lift what to do. So if it's going in too deep, it'll start pulling hard. There's no sensing mechanism to tell the hydraulics, lift the plow. So if you can set these to carry it, but the problem you're going to have is now, if the ground changes, that plow is rigid. So when your nose goes down, plow goes up, nose goes up, plow goes down. In draft control with the sensing, as the nose goes up and the plow starts down, it pulls harder, so the hydraulics lift it. When they lift it, traction goes on the rear wheels. So that's the Ferguson system. Anyway, I figured I'd cover that today because it's just so darn simple. Colleen sent me a message. I suppose I should go visit Colleen. You folks have a good day, and when you go working in your garden, remember, there's a lot of things that are very simple, and there's reasons why they don't work, and almost all of them add up to one thing: geometry and physics. Two things. Actually, they go together, don't they? Physical properties are changed by the location of where they are most often, especially mechanical physics. So essentially, you could play around with 3 different worlds here if you want to go online and research: mechanical, physics, and the geometry of it, how it works. So anyway, that's just something that I figure I'd fill your day out with and start it with before I go out and start monkeying around with rototillers and trying to avoid extension cords and such, because I have to finish that. One garden is done. I have another garden to take care of. What in the world is this one? Colleen sent me a message twice? No, she sent me a message once. And get added again with rototillers. One thing I'll say with rototillers are problematic, and one main reason is that your average rototiller that does the best overall job, not individual job, but best overall, is a forward rotating tine. So in other words, the tine grabs something, it's going to throw the tiller forward. It follows the drive wheels that are with it, if you have a rear tine tiller like mine. Now there's another one out there they call counter-rotating tines, and some idiot decided to build it in the Troy built and put their name on it in American or Modern Tool and Die MTD through Cub Cadet. And I saw one, it was Troy built like that, and it didn't do well. I ran it here, and it's, how can you say it? You have to have your depth adjusting bar set just right, and it is dramatic at how it tears up sod, but it tears it in chunks. And the problem is when you come back over the dirt again, the chunks are there already broken up, and you're trying to go deeper. You have to go down through the chunks and pick it up near the front. If you can get in the dirt, it'll pull, but you're trying to go through the chunks. And what happens is it lifts the rear tines. You have to hold it down. Now you say the other way is similar. Oh, my battery ran out. The other way is similar, only because it's coming down on the front. Well, yes and no, because your sod cut is coming through and it's throwing everything behind it. So now you're cutting through fresh dirt as you go forward. Well, yeah, but that's right, it doesn't give you that first pass dig, because that's the dramatic thing about their counter-rotating tine, is that hits the dirt, and if it can break the soil surface when it goes down through the front side of the tine, going up through sod is really going to start pulling. And it can do some dramatic cutting, but it doesn't do dramatic mixing. And that's what you're looking for with a rototiller. So your front tine tiller is digging fresh dirt. As it digs it, it goes down to the bottom and starts lifting it. Well, some of it gets tossed back over and run through the system again and continuously worked all the way through. Whereas your counter-rotating tine tends to pick it up, toss it to the back, and now the back is supposed to break through. Then you say, well, that's going to cut it up. Wish that it would. But it does do a lot better with general sod breaking up as you go down through, because there are big chunks. Next time you come through, though, you want it to be forward cutting. You want it to cut through that top stuff and then go down through the sod, because on the rear, it's going to toss it back up and mix it. It's one of the reasons that forward rotating tine fluffs your soil considerably more. Anyway, for those of you that have hung with me this far, we've been in here to almost 25 minutes. And it seems like we're beating a dead horse, but these are some of the things that people miss. Last but not least, putting grease in where my rototiller, as I said before. I said all the things about grease being problematic, and it is. Grease needs to flow. That's why they have special gear greases. I mix mine with, 80, 90 sometimes, and other times when I'm desperate, I actually put in 10W30 motor oil until it gets to the consistency I think it can flow. If it can flow and move and pour and droop and do all kinds of funny things like that, act like it's a semi-liquid, then you'll get some pretty good flow in there. But the idea is to move it, because it can get hot. And you need it to stick to the sides, but also come off the sides so it'll continuously mix. And you won't have the same grease stuck to those gears trying to grease it all the time. You'll have new, fresh lubricant. So there's to stop the seals from leaking and still get it to lubricate properly is what your concern is. So eventually I'm going to tear this little bugger apart, clean it all out, and I'm going to have to put in there actual double-aught gear grease that we use in the snapper lawnmowers. Because that gear grease, it does flow. It actually flows like a thick oil, similar to SAE 80W140 or 85W140 gear grease. So you folks have a good day. It's time for Pops to head out.